Hello and welcome to our program. Washington has been adamant that sanctions on Pyongyang will remain in place until its complete denuclearization. But there are signs of a shift in its position. In a recent interview, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo talked about reducing threats from North Korea for the security of the American people, which have made us wonder if the U.S. has changed its focus from denuclearization to the dismantlement of ICBMs. We will discuss the backdrop of the change in the U.S. stance and assess how it may affect the ongoing nuclear dialogue. Here's what we have for you today.
On this week's A Road to Peace, we discuss signs of change in Washington's position on North Korea talks and how it may affect future negotiations. We also take a look at North Korean TV coverage chronicling Kim's recent visit to China. Lastly, we'll learn about improvements being made to North Korea's public transport system.
For today's discussion, we're joined by Dr. Lee Seong-hyon, Director of the Center for Chinese Studies at the Sejong Institute. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
So reports are suggesting that the next Kim-Trump summit is most likely to be held in Vietnam in mid-February. What do you make of this?
Well, I think it's quite possible because John Bolton, the National Security Advisor to Trump, said that it will be held either in January or February. Also, Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State, he also said that they are working on details. So every statement from the officials from the U.S. government counts. There is also news reports that Kim Jong-un, the right-hand man of Kim Jong-un, might travel to Washington to pave the way for preparation of the summit. Also, the Vietnam officially proposed that they want to host the summit in Vietnam. Vietnam is a place where North Korea is very likely to choose because it's a socialist country. North Korea's embassy is there. It's not that far away from North Korea. Kim Jong-un's personal airplane could reach Vietnam. I also heard from a source that when Kim Jong-un visited Singapore, and he also toured around the Singapore industrial complex and development. He was not just sightseeing. What I heard is that he was very carefully watching and observing the development of Singapore. So Vietnam is also another model for economic development and socialist country that North Korea could look to. So I think the choice of Vietnam and the statement from the U.S. Senior level officials, I think it makes the whole picture that we're getting the impression that we are very close to the second summit.
And Vietnam also shares a border with China, so I think that would also make it an ideal choice from North Korea's perspective.
I think right? North Korea will feel safe, safe being in a socialist country with North Korea embassy there, not far from North Korea.
The second Kim-Trump summit was delayed mostly because the two sides were unable and unwilling to make a compromise. But it does look like there might be an interim deal because the United States has been hinting that it's going to focus more on dismantling North Korea's ICBMs and maybe push back denuclearization as a more of a long-term goal. What do you make of this, Dr. Lee?
I'm glad you asked this question. You said not the shift of goal, but the shift of focus. I think there are differences. If this is a sign of a shift of goal, this is very significant because the U.S. has changed its strategy in dealing with North Korea. But if this is an interim shift of focus, that let's focus on North Korea's ICBM first as an interim goal, and then eventual goal has not changed, that is a denuclearization of North Korea. But if the sound bites coming from the U.S. government, including the Mike Pompeo, they're focusing on the security of the U.S. continental United States. We'll see. It remains two different interpretations. But if this really happens, and there are also circumstances why that may be possible, because this year will be a punishing year for Trump domestically amid the probe into Russian interference in previous U.S. elections gains steam, and Trump feels cornered. And in that case, Trump might look to North Korea for a victory. Trump wants to have a victory, right? So given the domestic circumstances, Trump being cornered, and given the stalemate, long-term stalemate, and probably if Trump administration shift its focus or even goal, it will have a tremendous ramifications of not just about North Korea denuclearization, but also the entire geopolitical landscape in East Asia, including U.S. relations with allies, including Seoul and Tokyo.
So are you implying that this kind of deal would be a win-win for both sides?
Pyongyang
and Washington, if this deal is reached concerning the ICBMs and maybe a partial lift of sanctions?
Well, this is definitely a win for Pyongyang and lose for Washington because U.S. is compromising its stated goal of denuclearization of North Korea. Now it is reaching out to lower level of goal that is just capping the ICBM while leaving the nuclear and missile programs untouched. While for North Korea, what I heard initially was that during the Singapore summit, this was the goal that North Korea was seeking from the United States. North Korea wanted it so much that if Trump allowed North Korea to have its nuclear and missile programs while just giving up ICBM, ICBM is the component in North Korean nuclear program that is directly threatening to the continent of the United States. So I will get rid of a direct threat to the United States while keeping the rest of the program intact. In that case, I'm willing to give up ICBM. And I also heard that this is also something that North Korea was even willing to, that I'll be more cooperating with you in the future in the conflict between U.S. and Washington, U.S.-China rivalry. To be on not on the side of China, but to be more on the side of the United States, if U.S. allows that. So this is something that North Korea wanted to have from the very beginning, but now U.S. is compromising and willing to allow that to happen. In that case, I think that this is a win for North Korea, lose for Washington.
Now, we were talking about the change in the United States position, but what do you think triggered this change in stance? Could it be Kim Jong-un's most recent visit to China? And also, why do you think Kim chose China as his first overseas trip this year?
You're right. I agree with you. Kim Jong-un's visit to China was a factor. But also, I think the continuing, prolonging stalemate of the negotiations is inviting criticism in American domestic politics. Trump, you said that you will be a different president. You will be able to solve North Korean issue that any other previous U.S. president for the last 25 years has not been able to solve. But you said you will be able to solve it. But look at it's more than 1 year. We are still on the page number 0. And what are you doing? So Trump needs something to politically score in American domestic politics. At the same time, Trump also needs diversion tactics from the domestic politics, as I mentioned about the Russian investigation and to the presidential election. So Trump needs something to score that he can claim as a victory. So North Korea is a good topic in terms of international media attention as well. I think for Kim's visit to China, it was a surprise even for Chinese analysts living in China. They thought that Kim Jong-un visited China already 3 times last year, and that this should be a turn for Xi Jinping to visit Pyongyang. But again, Kim Jong-un visited, so it was a surprise. But what I heard is that it may have a surprise to audience like me or you, but then it was a premeditated a month ago. And at the end of the day, it was good from the interest of China, because Kim Jong-un visited China New Year, at the beginning of New Year, when they're thinking about what I'm going to do this year. And Kim Jong-un gave a very clear signal to China that I want to strengthen our ties with you. Kim Jong-un's game plan is very clear. By strengthening ties with China, he wants to use China as leverage against Washington in the denuclearization negotiation. For China, it's also a win for China as well, because look, Kim Jong-un came to me, you are negotiating with North Korea, but who Kim Jong-un listens to? Kim Jong-un comes to me and seeks advice from Xi Jinping, me. So you want any resolution about North Korea, but probably you should also think about that China is also influencing North Korea. I think it may have an implication for not just on China's influence or confirming China's influence on North Korea, but also U.S. will get some idea that, oh, China is very influential, and it might also have a U.S. strategy in terms of U.S. Trade negotiation with China as well. So it's a very clever tactic for Kim, the New Year's initiative, diplomatic initiative.
Well, staying with Kim's trip to China, North Korea's KCTV aired a 50-minute documentary on the trip. We'll continue with our discussions after watching a few clips.
현지 시간으로 8일 오전 11시 경야는 최고령 자동지께서 중화인민공화국의 수도 베이징에 도착하셨습니다. 단순히 지리적인 이웃관계로만이 아니라 피로써 맺어진 친선의 전통에 뿌리를 둔 전략적 관계로 발전해온 조중 친선관계는 오늘 두 당 두 나라 최고 용도자 동지들의 각별한 관심과 정력적인 용도에 의하여 동서고금의 류리가 없는 특수하고도 공고한 친선관계로 더욱 강화 발전되고 있습니다. 최고 용도자 김정은 동지의 중국 방문을 환영하여 중화인민공화국 주석인 습근평 동지가 8일 저녁 인민대회당에서 성대한 연회를 마련했습니다. 새해의 첫 기술에서 또다시 이루어진 상봉의 관의로 하여 환영연회는 세정 뜨겁고도 화기애애한 분위기 속에서 진행되었습니다. 경의하는 최고 용도자 동지를 베이징 동인당 주식유한공사 공장의 책임 간부들이 따뜻이 맞이했습니다. 1669년에 설립되어 오랜 역사와 전통을 가지고 있는 동인당이 오늘 36개 기지에서 2600여 종의 중약들과 건강식품들을 생산하는 세계적인 전통약품 생산 기업으로 발전한 데 대한 해설을 들으시며 제약공정들을 주의 깊게 돌아보셨습니다. 경의하는 최고 용도자 김정은 동지께서는 습근평 동지와 베이징 호텔에서 또다시 상봉하셨습니다. 습근평 동지와 백요원 여사가 마련한 오찬을 함께하시며 화기롭고 단란한 가정적 분위기 속에서 즐거운 담소를 나누셨습니다. 새로운 상봉을 약속하시며 뜨거운 작별의 인사를 나누셨습니다.
Now, industrial inspections were a key part of the trip again for Kim Jong-un, and the Chinese media also devoted quite a lot of portion to North Korea's economic development. Why is it so interested in North Korea's economic future?
This year is for Kim Jong-un's priority, or Kim Jong-un is preoccupied with economic development. And it's very interesting that everyone knows that economic aid should come from none other than China, because China provides most of the economic aid to North Korea. Also, North Korean economy depends on trade with China more than 90%. And so it's obvious that China is the main source, potential source of economic aid from North Korean perspective. So it's very, what we are keen to know is that China officially claims to maintain very tight economic sanctions on North Korea. But given that this is the 70th anniversary of diplomatic establishment between North Korea and China, given that Kim Jong-un visited China on his birthday, given that this is the New Year, and given that he used a train instead of airplane just took 2 hours to arrive from Pyongyang to Beijing, but he took a difficult road taking 12 hours. Just like what his father and grandfather did. It's bolstering the image of friendship and traditionally good ties, just like in during the Cold War era. Also, Xi Jinping and Kim Jong-un had lunch at Beijing Hotel, Beijing Fantian. That is also a very favorite place where Kim Jong-un's grandfather had meetings with Chinese leaders like Mao Zedong. And also the Kim Jong-un wears a hat. I think they call it felt hat. This is also his grandfather used to wear when he used to visit China. So Kim Jong-un is choreographing a drama that is just like I'm visiting China, just like my grandfather was visiting your leaders, just like during the Cold War, when our ties relations were so good and strong, and during that times, your leaders, U.S., China, also provide a lot of aid to North Korea. So Kim Jong-un is sending a political signal to China that don't forget about our friendship. But then friendship comes with a price. So I came here on my birthday. You know how our friendship is good. Then what kind of economic aid you will give to me? So I think we are keen to know there is any unspoken or implicit pledge from the Chinese side to North Korea in terms of economic package this year. There is also reports that Xi Jinping might visit North Korea during the April 15th, the anniversary of North Korea's founder. In that case, given the several years, the last time Chinese top leader visited North Korea was 2005. So this is a very important visit. There are accumulated pending agreements that will be done at the top levels between North Korea and China. So I'm very curious to know that whether there will be a significant economic package that China will give to North Korea despite the sanctions regime in place, whether they may not make all things public, but I'm sure in one way or another, there will be definitely some sort of significant economic aid will be going to North Korea this year.
I think that was a very interesting perspective. Now, moving on, during the first Inter-Korean summit held in April last year, Kim made comments about North Korea's underdeveloped roads and railways and expressed interest in modernizing them. Improving the country's urban public transport system is also said to be one of Kim's pet projects. Here's more on the story.
In North Korea, cars are reserved for the elite, and public transport is crucial to meeting the mobility needs of the people. Changes are happening on the streets of Pyeongyang, in line with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's drive to improve public transport for residents. We take a look at the improvements being made to the country's public transport system. The Pyeongyang Metro has served as the backbone of the city's transportation for more than 40 years. Built in 1973, a year earlier than the Seoul Metro, it consists of 3 lines connecting 16 stations, including 1 transfer station. Dubbed underground palaces, metro stations are adorned with mosaics, marbles, and chandeliers.
평양 지하철 같은 경우는 1973년도에 우리보다 이제 빨리 개통이 되었는데 그 내부를 보면은 그 엄청나게 그 화려한 그 샹델리나랄지 그 대리석으로 장식이 되어 있습니다. 그래서 이제 예를 들면은 이제 지하철의 그 화려함으로 유명한 그 구소련조차도 이제 관료들이 오면은 북한의 지하철을 보고 놀람을 금치 못했는데요.
그 아리랑 공연 같은 거 하잖아요. 그런 거 할 때면 외국인들이 숱한 사람들이 오는데 뭐 버스나 개도전차 뭐 이런 걸로 그 사람들 충족하기가 어렵거든요. 하니까 그 지하철 내부랑 엄청 잘 그려가지고 일단 그 사람들이 들어가면 그게 간강이 되거든요. 일단 뭐 이동하면서 그 자체가 간강이 되거든요.
Another distinctive feature of the Pyeongyang Metro is the stations are deep down underground. Stations were dug deep enough to serve as shelters in the event of war.
깊이만 보더라도 한 뭐 알려진 바에 따르면 한 150에서 200m 정도 상당히 이제 깊다고 해요. 바꿔 말하면 이제 전시용의 그 방공용고로 사용되기 위해서 그렇게 건설이 되었다고 합니다.
However, as metro service is only available in downtown Pyeongyang, it is insufficient to cater for the transport needs of all residents. Trolley buses and trams, which are unheard of in the south, are more popular forms of transport than the metro in Pyeongyang.
위에 전기선이 있거든요. 일반 버스나 비슷한데 전기선이 위에 있어가지고 그걸 따라서 이렇게 그걸 대고 이렇게 쭉 가면서 그 전기로 해서 가는 그런 형식이라고 볼 수 있고 궤도전차는 밑에 또 지하철처럼 궤도가 있거든요. 이렇게 레루가 있어가지고 그 종해줄 너선대로만 다닐 수 있는 그런 전차라고 보시면 됩니다.
North Korea has pushed for production of electric trolley buses, which are naturally a better choice for a country that has to rely entirely on imports for oil. During his inspection of a trolley bus factory, Kim stressed that the new buses should be the face of Pyongyang. Taxis are also a common sight across the capital city. Introduced at around the year 2010, there are now thousands of taxis operating in Pyongyang. The average taxi fare is $2 or about 16,000 North Korean won per kilometer.
비공식적인 수까지 합하면 한 6,000대 가량이 된다라고 하더라고요. 그리고 요금은 한 0.5km당 한 $1 정도의 가격인데 상당히 이제 비쌈에도 불구하고 뭐 젊은 층이라든지 대학생들 사이에서 상당히 많이 그 이용객 수가 있고 또 많이 늘어나고 있다고 합니다.
Compared to a range of transport options available within the city, choices are limited for intercity transport. Trains are preferred for long-distance travels. North Korean railways are more developed than its road routes due to the country's rugged and mountainous terrain. But trains travel at the lowest speed of 30 to 60 kilometers per hour, and delays are almost always expected.
북한은 기차를 타면 일단 먹을 게 많아야 돼요. 생각보다 먹을 걸 많이 준비해야지 막 연착이 되고 막 전기가 가고 하면 가다가도 막 종차 유역이 아닌데도 막 온도 올라가도 서고 뭐 지나가다가 그냥 벌판에 이렇게 러선 그냥 쭉 서 있고 그래서 전기가 오면 가고.
The unreliable railway system and the movement of people and goods driven by growing black market activity have given rise to a new mode of transport. Servi or service cars refer to privately owned trucks that are used to move people and goods around for a fee.
청진에서 평양까지 기차로 간다면 뭐 일주일 열흘 넘게 걸리는데 이 서비스차를 이용한다면 한 24시간 내에 이제 모든 게 다 해결이 됩니다. 바꿔 말하면 북한 사람들도 이제 장사를 하면서 시간은 곧 돈이다라는 이런 개념이 이제 형성된 것이죠.
Access to transport is closely linked with quality of life. North Korea's public transport is evolving, fueled by urban development and the burgeoning market economy.
I think it's really interesting that the North Korean metro is so deep that when you go down, you actually get bored while going down to the bottom. And it's also interesting to see the trams and trolley buses because we don't have them in the South. So why is North Korea trying to improve these overall public transport systems?
Well, this is a very interesting question. Just makes me think that I should give this quiz to my students who are trying to understand and analyze North Korea. What do you think about this, this phenomenon? I think, even without intelligence or any other deep knowledge, I think we should approach it from a common sense. North Korea is a country that is very mountainous. There are a lot of mountains and it's very steep. In that case, when we think about trams and trolley buses, we think about diesel engines. But then, number one, North Korea under international, very heavy international sanctions, the oil will not be smoothly go to North Korea. So North Korea should find the alternative source of energy, that is electricity. And the trolley buses and trams are run by electricity. That's one reason. Second is that given the hilly mountainous regions, the electricity powered these vehicles are much more powerful. They go up the steep hills. So I think these are two reasons. But there might be some other reasons, but I can think about these two reasons.
I'm also curious, does North Korea have enough electricity and power to generate for these improvement in public transport systems?
That's a good question. Compared to oil, petroleum, electricity is relatively much more accessible.
I see.
And North Korea in the recent years also renovated some of its electricity generating dams. I'm getting the signals from people who recently traveled to North Korea. The situation with electricity is getting better and better.
Well, that's good. Well, Dr. Lee, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thank you. A shift in the U.S. position and Kim's visit to China both signal that the second North Korea-U.S. summit is near. We will continue to bring you the updates on the latest developments. And this is where we wrap things up. We'll be back next week. Thanks for watching.